Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. Golden Spike Tactical channel. Just wanted to do a quick video on how to load this AK drum magazine. I've had a lot of questions lately on just by friends and family how they get that AK drum loaded. And when you open this thing, you're probably, if you've never seen one before, you open it for the first time, you're probably going to be a bit confused and bewildered. So let's get started. So this, I believe, is a Bulgarian drum magazine, and the first thing we need to do, of course, is undo these clamps here and open the back of it like that. So now that I've got it open, you're probably going to be a bit confused as to, well, how the hell does this thing work? So the first thing we want to do is, of course, make sure there's no ammunition in the neck or anywhere. It seems to be clear. And you're going to see this little follower on a hinge right here. And we've got to keep an eye on where that follower is. You can see it right here swiveling around. So the objective is we have to get this follower all the way to the beginning of the magazine, because this is our end point right here. And we can't really load it with the follower right there. So you'll notice you'll try and advance it to the back, and it's not going to do anything. So you'll see this center button right here in the middle of the drum magazine. So what we've got to do is we've got to actually press and hold that down. And if there's tension on the spring already, pushing this will release the tension on that spring. So I've got to hold it down and advance this magazine follower all the way to the rear. So I've got to turn it clockwise. Once it's all the way to the rear, I can't move it anymore. So now that it's to the rear, before we fully load this magazine, we've got to do one thing, and that is we've got to prime the neck, or we're not going to get very far loading it. So in order to prime the neck, I usually pick up 5 rounds of good old 7.62 39, and I've got to fill these first 5 positions. Now the neck usually won't hold 5, it'll usually hold about 3. So now that I've got those 5 in place, it's going to act kind of like a train, and it's going to fill that neck completely up like that. So now I've got to remove these rounds in the way right here. I just kind of used those to guide the other 3 in. Now that I've got the neck primed, I've got to hold this button again so this follower goes all the way to the rear, and yeah, that one might fall down a bit. So now that I've got that follower to the rear again, I can begin filling it up. So I'll just grab a handful of ammo. And I will start filling all of the gaps. Now these gaps in the middle around the spring tension release, you don't fill those, you just fill these empty spots right here. And keep in mind that the nose of the bullet rests inside of a track, so you want to make sure the nose is resting in that track. Just fill all these spaces, even these little holes right here, you've got to fill with ammo. And you'll kind of feel the noses of the actual bullet resting in these tracks as you load it. It's going to malfunction if you don't load it properly, so keep an eye on that, and remember to fill these holes as well. Now these drum magazines are pretty nifty. First of all, because if AK is your bailout rig, your bailout rifle, you can actually store loaded drum magazines without having a lot of tension on your springs. And even though having tension on your springs does not technically wear them out, this is a nice way to store a large quantity of ammo that is just readily available. You can store it next to your rifle and just grab the drum, slap it in the rifle, and go if you ever have to bail out. And the nice thing about it is you don't have to have want 100% tension on the spring when you store it. We'll talk about that in a minute once I've filled it up. Oops. Remember to get those bullet tips seated in the track. That track kind of guides all the ammunition along in a straight line. And even fill this little space, because if you don't fill this space next to the follower right here, you're not going to have a functioning drum magazine when you wind it up. Okay, so I just like to look it over really quick, make sure I got all the holes. By the end of this, you should have your drum filled with 75, 76 rounds roughly. So the next thing I want to do is obviously close the back of the magazine. You see this little castle nut right here on there. It has to line up with the winding mechanism. If it doesn't, and if it won't close, you usually just have to turn the winding key a little bit. So there's a little notch right here that you line it up with. So now that I've closed the back, make sure it can close evenly. There's no rounds poking up out of there. Now I got to do the latches, but that's not the last thing I've got to do. I've got to put some tension on the spring or the magazine isn't going to function. Now if I'm storing it, I like to wind the key three times, and you can kind of get on the magazine and feel how much tension is on it, but I like to wind it 3 times if I'm just storing it. Don't like to wind it all the way up, don't want all that pressure on those rounds for a long period of time. But anyway, if I'm going to shoot it, you don't have enough tension on it, it's not going to feed properly. So you're going to wind it, and I always do it 7 times. So I've just wound the key 7 times, 3 to store, 7 to shoot. So good job, you just loaded your first full AK drum magazine. Thank you for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe.